We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, I will now call this meeting to order at 5 p.m. Township of Georgian Bluffs Council. And I will turn the land acknowledgement statement over to Carly Craig, our Manager of Legislative Services / clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabeg, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation who have inhabited this land from time immemorial, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. As we conclude council business for 2024 and reflect on all of the wonderful things we have accomplished as a township this year, I believe it is important to reflect on our journey, both present and future, as we move into a new year with many exciting projects and bodies of work proposed or already underway. In 2024, we had many successes, particularly relevant at tonight's meeting as staff proudly present item 13.1.1 on tonight's agenda to highlight the many accomplishments we made this year. As I reflect on 2024, I find myself reflecting back further to my start with the township in 2021 and the evolution I have witnessed within the organization. Since that time, the township has seen some unstable staffing and leadership periods, 2 councils, and many successes too. When I reflect on 2024, I see a year of accomplishments, energized and new staff, engagements, engaged and caring leadership, and increased collaboration between council and staff, unlike any year preceding it. When I reflect on this, I'm reminded of the 7 grandfather teachings, particularly the teaching of humility, the wolf. Humility is defined in this teaching as knowing that alone we are strong and powerful, but that we find our greatest strength when we are part of a pack, working collectively as staff, council, and community. This is a teaching that reminds us that humility makes communities stronger. Each of us brings different skills, abilities, subject matter expertise, life experience, perspectives, beliefs, and opinions. Many have extensive township history to share and lessons to teach. When we put all of this together and put this teaching into practice, the result is a stronger and more resilient township. In 2025, I hope that we continue to recognize that our work has more value to the community as a collective and united team working for the benefit of Georgian Bluffs. I look forward with optimism and excitement to the year ahead, grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this team, to work with our stakeholders, neighboring municipalities, and First Nations communities for a stronger Georgian Bluffs.
Thank you. That was lovely. And welcome everyone here in the audience. And I'll just turn to online and make sure that you can both hear us on there. Deputy Mayor Pringle and Councillor Coburn. Perfect. Okay. So moving on with approval of the agenda and additions to the agenda, the recommendation for this evening is that the procedure bylaw be waived to allow an item to be added under delegation / public question period regarding road maintenance on concession 16 from Aaron Cook, and that the agenda be approved as amended. Are there any other additions to the agenda this evening first? Seeing none, I will call for a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Scholdice, is there any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? Okay. That is carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, if one should arise throughout the meeting, you may declare at that time. Minutes of the previous meetings, the recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on November 20th, 2024 be adopted. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Day and Councillor Thompson, is there any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Does any member wish to make an announcement? Seeing none, the only comment I would make is that the Santa Claus parade at Kemble on Sunday afternoon was absolutely awesome. It was incredible how many people were there, both in the parade and lining the streets. So thank you to everyone that was there and that put that on. And I believe the Lions Club once again ran out of hot chocolate and hot dogs. That's a good thing. And Mingle and Jingle on Monday night at Shallow Lake was well attended as well. So some good events going on within the community. And the lights in front of the community center look absolutely amazing. Yes. So, public hearings, we have none. Delegations or public/public question period. For items on the agenda, any person who wishes to appear before council regarding an item on the agenda shall make written application to the clerk by 3 p.m. the day of the meeting. To register, go to www.georgianbluffs.ca/delegations or call the clerk's office at 519-376-2729, extension 603. And our first item is item 8.1.1, GEI Consultants read the municipal drainage memo. And the recommendation is that the order of business be amended to consider item 13.2.4 immediately following the presentation by GEI Consultants, and that the procedure bylaw be waived to allow additional time for presentation of the 10-year capital operating plan. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Day? Councillor Thompson? If there's any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Okay, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christopher Slocum. I'm here representing GEI. I'm here to give a presentation on the 10-year capital operating plan for the municipal drains. So as a brief background, GM Blue Plan, now formerly GEI, has been Georgian Bluffs Drainage Superintendent since 1972. Georgian Bluffs has 16 municipal drains, followed by 2 drains under review, the Ames Drain and the Survey, the Sydenham Drain. 6 stormwater management projects or drains that have been abandoned or deemed not a municipal drain by the drainage superintendents of the past. We would like to propose an 8-year inspection and maintenance plan for the municipal drains, maintenance occurring the year prior to the inspections, inspections, and then following year is maintenance. GEI is to record conditions of the road crossings to aid the township in scheduling requirements for road crossings, maintenance, and then replacement if necessary for road crossings. So what makes a municipal drain? A municipal drain is, there's 3 categories that is needed for a municipal drain. There's a bylaw, which needs to be read a minimum twice, engineer's report, and plans and profiles of that drain. The drainage superintendent under the Drainage Act is intended to initiate, supervise the maintenance and repair of any drainage works in accordance with the current bylaw, engineer's report, and drawings. They're responsible to maintain the drains over time while reporting to council on the condition of the drains moving forward. The drainage engineer is responsible for the design creation of drainage works through Section 6 petition process and Section 78 improvement process of the Drainage Act. There's some funding through OMAFRA. OMAFRA funds drainage superintendent at 50%. So there's a 50% grant through OMAFRA for the costs associated with the drainage superintendent. Those costs for the drainage superintendent are not associated back to the landowners, whereas the costs for a drainage engineer, that cost is associated back to the landowners through an assessment schedule. And then individuals that can be eligible for the farm property class tax rate programs. That is an eligibility for certain farmers as long as they're classified under the Ontario Farm Property Class Tax Rate Program. There are some maintenance and repair projects that are ongoing. So the hall drain was completed back in 2017. We're awaiting a T-PON for grant eligibility before we can do the assessment schedule, as well as the web drain. And after that, there's not too much more. There's drains with some missing information. Scott drain, we need to do a inspection of the drain itself in order to determine what the condition it's in, and then steps moving forward from there. Hall drain is the same thing, inspection of the area, and then steps moving forward, as well as the web drain. The Ames and Sydenham drain require inspections as well. Any questions, concerns?
Thank you. I will turn to council.
I had probably a quick question
Yeah.
about, it's on page 7 of the document. On March 12th in 2024, there was an item for maintenance and repair of the web drain.
Maintenance and repair of the web drain. Yep.
And the previous descriptions of maintenance included next steps and who would be taking those next steps. So that information wasn't in here, and I wanted to see if there was something the municipality needs to do, or if we are just assuming that would require a spot clean out in 2 sections.
The proposed maintenance that's in there. I was contacted by a landowner this past summer about some potential cleanup areas along the web drain. Since then, I haven't completed an inspection of that area just yet. I've informed the landowner of the steps moving forward. They need to come to the township with a maintenance request moving forward, and that is kind of where I left it off with that landowner in particular. He's aware that in order for maintenance to occur, he needs to reach out to the township in order to move forward with any maintenance. And then once we go through our maintenance program, inspection program of the web drain, which is scheduled for that would be 2025, I believe. Then we can make our recommendations at that point.
Okay, thank you. I just appreciate the clarification of who is responsible for the next steps.
Yeah. No problem.
Any other questions from anyone? So I have a question. This may sound really silly. Sorry.
Grant, Deputy Mayor Pringle had his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Deputy Mayor Pringle, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Carlton. Not really a question, more of a comment. It was really nice to see it laid out to where we are with each of the drains that are out there, and the process being in play to get them cleaned out in the virtual, or in the amount of time that needs to be done, whatever. 8 years seems like a long time between cleanouts and a lot of them, but that's the reality of it, and it's nice to see that all laid out on in black and white, that we can use it to go forward with taxpayers in the township. So no, I thought it was nicely done piece, and it was well laid out. That's all.
Thank you. Question I had, where are the Ames drain and the Sydenham? Because I couldn't find them anywhere on those maps.
Correct.
So it wasn't just me missing that.
No.
Thank you.
No, they're not currently municipal drains, therefore they're not on the map right now. The Sydenham River drain is the Sydenham River itself. The Ames survey drain is up by Wyerton.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Then I think we are switching to staff for the report that's on our agenda. Thank you. I'm just looking to see where we're going next with this. Okay. Michael, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam. I don't see our manager of engineering online, so I'll take a stab at his report. The report, Dev 2024-072 is a municipal drain capital operating plan. It's brought forward more information than anything else. As we've just heard, there are a number of municipal drains within the municipality, and I was impressed to hear that GEI, formerly GM Blue Plan, has been looking after our drains as our drainage superintendent since 1972. Their main tasks are include but not limited to the drainage system assessment and mapping, design and engineering support for drainage improvements, inspections and maintenance, and also compliance under the Municipal Drain Act. The 8-year maintenance and inspection plan that was presented to us this evening is really intended to keep our existing municipal drains in good shape, and as well as provide a kind of an infill of additional information on some of our more historic drains as we look to more information on those. And I do know that our staff work very closely with GEI, and especially on possibility of introducing new municipal drains if and when that happens, as well as looking at projects that would personally utilize municipal drain. For example, looking at a road reconstruction or bridge reconstruction and what have you. So essentially the report is a rounding out of the presentation provided by GEI this evening.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Christopher, for your presentation to us this evening. So I do have a recommendation here that the Municipal Drain Capital Operating Plan be received for information. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? I'm watching online. Councillor Coburn and Deputy Mayor Pringle. We have this little time delay between here and those online. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. So thank you, Christopher and Michael. The next is for items not on the agenda. Any person who wishes to appear before council regarding an item not on the agenda may make written application to the clerk by the Thursday preceding the meeting they wish to speak at. To register, you go to www.georgianbluffs.ca/delegations or call the clerk's office at 519-376-2729, extension 603. So first up is 8.2.1 Municipal Housing Development, Daniel and Adam Siegel. And
Hi there.
okay,
How are you this afternoon?
welcome. So you have 10 minutes to provide comment to us.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me to your council meeting this afternoon. My name is Daniel Siegel. I'm a Tarion builder who's been doing laneway houses and garden suites in Toronto and Hamilton since 2020. I'm here today to address the housing crisis in Ontario and put some ideas out about possible solutions. And so in Georgian Bluffs, the affordable detached purchase price, according to Bill 23, which is the Build More Homes Built Faster Act, is $402,000 for a house. Whereas the median home price in Georgian Bluffs was $855,000 per house. That's as of October of 2024. So there's a huge gap there, about $400,000 for a house. And so the question is, how on earth are these things ever built? And the quick answer is, if you separate the land from the value of the house, all of a sudden we could start building and selling houses for an amount that is somewhere in the ballpark of where that affordable detached purchase price is. So the goal of my delegation here today is just to provide some potential solutions that might be referred to staff if staff is interested in doing a subdivision of attainable houses. The purpose of this delegation was to encourage municipalities to look at getting into the housing development business for the purpose of bridging the gap in housing supply. So Grey County is responsible from transitional housing right up to rent geared to income. And then we all expect the private sector to fill the gap afterwards. I think it's fair to say that that gap isn't being serviced. And the question is why? The numbers don't work. So if we could imagine, the housing continuum is missing a few steps pretty much from rent geared to income, which might be somewhere around $1,500 a month, right up until, you know, the median house price of say $855,000, which roughly works out to $4,000 a month in mortgage payments. So the question is, how do you bridge that gap, and is it worthwhile doing? I certainly think it is worthwhile doing. I think that there's really good evidence south of the border that municipalities could be effective solutions to the housing crisis. Unfortunately, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing puts a lot of restrictions on what a municipality could do, and therefore I'm acutely aware that it's not necessarily feasible for a municipality themselves to be a housing developer. However, in concert with either a municipal housing corporation or a community land trust, all of a sudden, I think it's almost feasible, if not a good idea, to start looking at surplus lands and available housing accelerator funding, as well as a few other sources, to start to put together a business plan to build small clusters of communities, say like 10 to 20 units on an unserviced lot, to be able to provide attainable housing. It's important for people. The mayor of Southwest Oxford put it very eloquently. He said it's for the newlyweds and the nearly deads. And, that could be accomplished if we use the ground lease model, where community land trust might own the land, and then they then either rent it out to homeowners, or homeowners actually are able to get leasehold mortgages on that land and buy it for an affordable purchase price. So with that, I don't want to take much more of your time. I just want to present a few talking points, and if there's any interest from Georgian Bluffs, this delegation could be referred to staff, and I could work with staff to come up with a proposal that might meet your housing needs in 2025. So with that, if you have any further questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And I thank you for your time this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. And I will turn to council to see if there are any questions. I'm not seeing any, so thank you, Daniel, for your presentation, and we appreciate the information.
Thanks very much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. And next up is Keith Davidson, Kemble Community Center. So welcome, Keith. You've got 10 minutes to provide comment.
Thank you, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, councilors, Mr. CAO, public, Your Worship. Rayburn didn't tell me I only had 10 minutes. Like the previous two delegates they ran short, so I hope if I go, I'm going to talk quick. That you'll grant me a bit of an exemption, okay? But I'm a proud Georgian Bluffer, and I want to wave my flag for Georgian Bluffs, and I want to wave it especially for Kemble, Greater Kemble, Big Bay, Kemble Shore, Presqu'île, Cobble Beach, and all the way across all the farms, okay? I'm a fourth generation Kemble Davidson. I've lived on the Kemble shore since retirement 27 years ago. I inherited on the lands I inherited from my father and my grandfather. I've been a community recreation activist trying to make a difference and headed up many programs and projects for you during that time. I have to tell you that it is often frustrating when there is so much red tape to cut and things move so slowly with Georgian Bluffs, where the mantra is often delay, 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 then decay, decay, decay. Witness the W Hill, Centennial Park, and the Kemble Arena decay over the decades. I'm here tonight to try to twist the arm of council to call a town hall meeting for all residents in Kemble and Greater Kemble to give their input as to what we need in a much needed new build, meeting place, community hall, community center. I plan to give my vision as well as how we can fund it. We, the people, in a three-way formula, as well as the formation of our own building committee to take back and refine from the consensus from the town hall, and then pass on our recommendations to the municipality, your architect, and council, and your staff. Like this is a bottom-up scenario, not top-down. So now, Your Worship, you and our CAO, if I heard you right, at a meeting in September 2023, the plan for a new Kemble Community Center is to erect it someday on the 63 acres of prime farmland you purchased on the southwest end of the village to solve the drainage problems for all the new housing construction. And the plan is to maybe incorporate someday a paramedic substation, a fire hall, an OPP substation, and other municipal buildings, along with a Kemble Community Center into some sort of municipal complex up here in the northeast section of Georgian Bluffs. And further, this won't happen for 7 years. That's what you talked about. And further, our old barn ice Orvin Arena, the most underused arena in Canada, won't be demolished for 7 years because people are now playing pickleball in it, and they're playing carpet. They still play carpet bowl. And they're making them and us wait 7 years for our new rec center. I'm 85 years old. No Davidson man in 4 generations has ever made it to 90 years. Like, I feel gobsmacked. Like 7 years for us to wait. Like I'm sorry. Like it's. So with all due respect, you've heard me say this when I have addressed council and in written documents. We deserve a new, scaled down, small recreation facility in our active community up here in the boonies. Boonies said affectionately. We've been waiting for it for over 25 years. The plans for the renovation of the Kemble Arena, they got a lot of people charged up, but it was all pie in the sky, grandiose stuff at exorbitant costs, and it had to be scrapped, thank goodness. What we need is a common sense meeting place, a community hall, a community center, call it what you want, but give us the basic amenities for our active lifestyles up here in Kemble and Greater Kemble. We, the North, we are 25% of the Georgian Bluffs population. We are active, we do things, and we try to make a difference. Our new meeting place, community center, community hall, could be used for multiple recreation activities, i.e. monthly old-time dances with the Beckett family and other local orchestras, youth dances, concerts, banquets, wedding receptions, celebration of lives, fitness classes, meetings, conferences, training, artisan shows, line dancing, yoga, preschool gym, 4-H activities, arts and crafts, knitting and sewing, quilt classes, painting classes, darts, cards, bingos, gentle fit, shuffleboard, carpet bowling, Lions Club activities, church events, Kemble Women Institute events, music classes, and outside the building, a barbecue patio with a heavy-duty commercial barbecue for chicken fests, beef fests, pig roasts, as well as lots of parking. A roundabout at the front to drop people off, flower gardens here and there, benches, arbors, playground equipment, a small ball diamond, a small soccer pitch, and a big play area for special outdoor events. Build it, they will come. They really will, as long as everything is aesthetically pleasing and it has the amenities in it that people up here want. A consensus is made by us residents, exactly what we want, not what the architects want. It will be used all the time. People will be proud of their center, a one-of-a-kind, simple, standalone building, a building that residents are proud of, just like they're proud of the one-of-a-kind Kemble Women's Institute Lookout. And there's several Women's Institute women back here accompanying me tonight. And not part of a fire hall, paramedic, OPP station where like our kids might get run over by a speeding cop or a speeding fire truck or a paramedic. Like, I don't get it. So it's extremely difficult to design a building that will host high ceiling event sports like basketball and volleyball and what you had in your renovation at the arena. And yet have everything aesthetically pleasing for dances, concerts, banquets, wedding receptions. I say keep our new building low ceiling for cost or relatively low so the intimate aesthetics can be kept, and we don't want or need a double gymnasium like you came down with. A double gymnasium Emporium like the architect and your staff came down with in the recent Kemble Arena reno fiasco. We need a facility more for social activities, but a building that will accommodate all kinds of fitness activities that I listed above. We are an aging demographic up here. Just look at the guy that's talking. And up here, we just need a simple gathering place. Niall mentioned that the Katie Arena has many repair problems and that Shallow Lake, your epicenter of Georgian Bluffs, has an arena that is in need of major repairs. He said that a major recreation facility study is coming down, and we all know what is coming. Shallow Lake is going to get a second ice surface. They're going to get their refrigeration fixed up. They're going to get a gymnasium, a hall, a walking track, all things suitable for high ceiling sports activities like basketball and pickleball and badminton and probably lots of other renovations. To this, I say, great. Put it over in Shallow Lake. Let Shallow Lake have all the aforementioned activities. Let people out our way drive over there if they want to participate in the high ceiling events. Dyed-in-the-wool pickleball players will travel all over the place in order to play their sport. Just what doesn't Kemble? They're coming from Bruce County all over the place. Just please give us our very own small scale meeting place, community hall, community center that we'll be proud of and will participate in all the time. If you do, we can do our share to help pay for it, like we did for the Women's Institute Lookout and at Centennial Park when we renovated. But this is a bigger formula. So I say pay for our new rec center, 1/3 from the federal provincial government, 1/3 from the municipality, and 1/3 fundraising and donors from us ratepayers. That's a funding principle I really believed in. And my working years, that's what I used. But it only works, this formula only works if it is from the grassroots up. Us local people have to have a key say in what is to be built. And then we build around our dream in cooperation with the municipality. A town hall meeting should be held on what type of building we want in Kemble and Greater Kemble, with maybe Michael McLuhan chairing it, and Niall can back him up. It should be held in our own community at the Kemble United Church, but not 30 minutes away at Shallow Lake, as the meeting was for the arena renovation with only 10 people showing up. Well, no wonder, it's in Shallow Lake. It wasn't in our own community. I will gladly speak to my vision for a new rec center, meeting place, community hall, and I'm sure there will be many others speak to theirs too. Hopefully we can come to a consensus as to what should be built, how it should be built, how we pay for it, who should be asked to go on the building vision working committee. And I gave you 5 names back a year ago that I'd recommend, and who should go on the fundraising committee. And we can suggest to the municipality where it should be built on, if you give us some information about what's going on with properties. So You gave us $10,000 for the Kemble Women's Institute lookout. We raised over $80,000 for it. Okay? The lookout has become the most used park in Georgian Bluffs. There's always somebody visiting morning, day, and even night times in all 4 seasons of the year. The lookout project that was built from the ground up, not top down. The same way a new meeting place, community center, community hall should be in Kemble and Greater Kemble. There's no place in Canada that needs a wee rec center more than we do. We deserve it, and we deserve it now. A standalone rec center that we will all have had input into its creation. I have no way of knowing what a new rec center would cost, but we have lots of local residents who work or have worked in construction, building trades, building design, who can hammer things out if you get them on a working committee. But let's say the cost estimate from the committee comes in at $3 million. Then I see $1 million coming from the feds and the province, $1 million from Georgian Bluffs, and $1 million from the donors and fundraising from us, the people. The municipality for 7 consecutive years, 7 years, recently took $1 million each year out of our tax contributions to top up the reserves. Those reserves now sit at $41 million. We are very well off financially in our municipality. We don't have near the infrastructure to pay for what our neighbors do. And we can well afford to put $1 million for a Kemble Rec Center through the tax base if residents can fundraise $1 million too. And the feds and province give us another $1 million. Might come in a little bit more of that, but just do the math and we extrapolate it. That's when I see an architect becoming involved. We will tell him or she how much we have to spend on the building, and he can sketch out his pretty pictures and exact measurements that will be needed to satisfy the feds and the province and Georgian Bluffs engineers. So the place is designed properly. Tenders can go out saying we have $3 million to spend on this project. What will you do, what will you do for us, builders? I figured there will be lots of money saved this way, not like the recent debacle where the architect and your staff brought down plans for the renovation for almost $6 million. The Kemble Women's Institute Lookout is a gem, it's a prize winner, and so will the rec center. It will be a gem and a prize winner if we, the residents, ratepayers, in cooperation with the municipality of Georgian Bluffs can get it right in the planning of it. The first big step is for council to call a town hall in the church, in our church, to let ratepayers have their say. A meeting advertised by Georgian Bluffs through all their sources, inviting all Kemble and Greater Kemble ratepayers to come and have their say on a new community center. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I'm going to have my say, and other people will have their say. The council can come too and observe. Your workshop back 13 months ago on October the 10th, the Kemble Women's Institute, I attended a joint meeting of the Women's Institute and the UCW, where you, your worship, you were kind enough to come out to our church and address what the state of recreation was in Kemble. That was 13 months ago. Good for you coming out. There was good feedback given to you. The Kemble Women's Institute minutes reads, at the end of the meeting, the mayor agreed to the following. 1, to contact the Davenport family to discuss the future of the current arena location lands. And 2, to begin the process through council to call a town hall meeting with the Kemble community, probably at the church, to determine what the community sees as its current and future recreational needs. With all due respect, your worship, it's been more delay, while our old barn of an arena decays. And you started to dismantle it. All the ice surface boards are now taken out. Chairs and tables are taken to other facilities. It's an embarrassment. Question 1, your worship. Location. What is the status of the lands the arena sit on? Will the Davenport family be willing to let the township buy the land, or they might even donate it? And would they be willing to sell off 10 to 15 acres of their land that abuts the current property? So a common sense, new build, meeting place, community center, community hall could have adequate parking space and open space for other recreation amenities.
Steve, I think I'm.
Last page, can I have one more page? I'll just wrap it up, if you don't mind. If they would, in my opinion, it would be the ultimate site for what we need. A rec center right in the middle of the village, right smack in the middle of the village with adequate parking and open space and recreation area. Question 2, what is the status of the Kimball Athletic Field just north of the village? Another good site for a new build. Did the McGregors donate this land originally to the township, or do they still own it? Or does the township own our athletic fields? Your worship, this question, your worship, with respect, will you and your council finally, after 13 months, finally call a town hall meeting? With respect, we're tired of the old mantra you give us in Campbell, delay, delay, delay. There was to have been a Georgian Bluffs recreation feasibility come down this year. The year's almost over, but now you've put it off until 2025. Delay, delay, delay. We get studied to death all the time in Georgian Bluffs. We don't need another study out here in Campbell. Most everybody agrees we don't need a new arena in Campbell. We need a new meeting place, community center, community hall. We just need a consensus from the grassroots residents as to what kind of a building it should be. Please give the town hall, please call the town hall and let us get on with it. Please assist us in a grassroots up program for a much needed facility we've been waiting for decades. Not a top-down scenario with costly out of the community experts from some city in Ontario telling us what to do. Thank you for your kind attention, council and mayor. And sorry, I've gone a little over the limit, but when you get to be my age, you get a little long-winded. But when you're passionate about something, like I am about, like a new community center in Kimball, like I get long-winded. It's one of my 2 dreams to come to Kimball before I kick the bucket. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Keith. And I don't think there's anyone on council or staff would love to see an amazing facility out there, but I think the dollars are maybe a little different than what you're quoting, and I don't think we've got the reserves that you think we do. But I'm going to turn to the rest of council to see if anyone has any questions for Mr. Davidson.
You spoke so eloquently and passionately about this, and that's something that I'd love to see. Absolutely.
Thanks, Isaac.
I love that you used the words seeing a bottom-up approach from the grassroots residents, and that's something I would
That's the key.
I would fully support that. Oh, also, I love the flag. That was cool. Thank you for doing that. That was good. And I'd like to learn more about your funding approach. I think that's something that I would be interested in for sure. If I, as a newer counselor, I don't know about how a town hall works or how calling a town hall happens, but if that's something we can facilitate, you have my word, I'll be there for sure. Yeah, I'd like to hear more from you guys.
It would be a town hall meeting called under your auspices, but Michael McClone would be an excellent chair with some guidelines. But to hear everybody, like some people might say, Davidson, you're out in left field wanting us to cough up money, let the township do it. Well, that's not going to work for us because Shallow Lake gets everything. I love Shallow Lake. My uncle was the mayor there, and my first cousin was the mayor. But that's your epicenter. That's where put everything over there. Like make that your center. That's fine with me. Just give us our meeting place, like our community center and low. But if you get Isaac, if you get Councillor Scholl, if we get the proper people on a working committee, like we've got people like, I can think of music, we've got Roy Wade, we've got Harold Sutherland, we got Dowd from our church, and they're experienced with building things. If they were to plan it, there's all kinds of ways that we might save money. Like Roy could put the foundation in, like he might even volunteer to help. That's a big savings, okay? And we could help paint, we could help landscape, we could lay the cushioned floor, which is critical for dances. The public could do that. There's lots of ways that we can. Well,
thank you for your time tonight. It was nice hearing the passion from your voice. I really appreciate it.
But it's we have to get it across to the public that they have to cough up, or we'll never get it. Like the mayor just said it. Like we don't have the whatever she said. I say we can do it if we get what we want, and it'll be like the Kimball Women's Institute Lookout. If we get the building we want and plan for it, I think that people will pay up, and a lot of corporations will help. I think we can raise $1 million. I think we can raise more.
Keith, if we could go to Councillor Coburn, she has her hand up.
I have a thank you, and through you, Mayor Carlton, to Keith and everyone on council. There's a lot to unpack here. But what I do want to say, Keith, is that I always enjoy hearing you speak. I also appreciate your passion for community. I have to agree with you that it does seem like a lot of our funds are being spent in the Shallow Lake area, and certainly that was discussed at budget time. I think we need to share the wealth. But I do want to make a point about making promises to community members. And if I understand you correctly, that has been done a few times. And although I wasn't part of those discussions, I want to offer an apology to you. There is no way that we should be talking about 7 years or 2 years down the road. We don't have that information. We don't have a crystal ball. There's no way that we should have suggested it go on a particular piece of property in Kemble. Council has not had those discussions in any substantive way, nor has a decision been made on that. I don't think it's appropriate to make promises about contacting community connections in regards to a new community center until council has had a time to discuss this and make a decision on how to move forward. It's certainly not appropriate to talk about it being a huge facility with shared space. For example, a health clinic. We don't have a building problem with healthcare. We have a staff problem. And if anyone thinks that if you build it, they will come is going to be the solution, I can tell you it's not. As far as it being a paramedic station, Grey County fairly recently did an evaluation on where the sites are for those stations, and there were no recommended changes to that. So it would not have made sense to suggest that we have that placed in Kemble.
Just interrupt. Sorry, Councillor Colbert. That was my idea. It was Niall that brought that up.
I'm offering an apology on everyone's behalf if indeed those statements and promises have been made. I believe in the supremacy of council. I believe this is the kind of thing we move forward with together, council as a whole, and I don't think we should be speculating or making promises that we can't keep. So I do offer that apology to you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Colbert. I don't know whether you're for me or against me. Are you for me when I pretended, Kathy?
I am for council having this deliberation as part of our budget discussions and as part of a more comprehensive discussion around recreation as a whole for the municipality and how we prioritize our spending in the near future. That's what I'm in favor of.
Okay. Councillor Coburn, there's no cost to a town hall. That's the main point that I bring tonight. A town hall would be advertised by the municipality. That would cost some money to get across to the people, but there'd be minimal cost to the municipality to find out what the people in Kemble want. Like the people in, like, that's my whole point. Grassroots up, but still under the umbrella of council and the staff, but ground up, just like at the Kemble Women's Institute.
Keith, I think we all get it.
Are you sure?
Appreciate
your
your
worship?
passion. Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you.
Hope to hear from you soon.
Okay.
Hope you come on back out to the Kemble Women's Institute sometime and answer some of the questions that I laid out for you. Like especially about locations and the Davenport land and the McGregor land.
Okay.
Promise?
Okay.
Promise?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving on. The next item is 8.2.3, road maintenance, concession 16, Aaron Cook. Aaron, if you would like to come to the front, or Luke, you're coming? Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to speak at short notice.
Yes, no
I'm
problem.
Luke Cook. I'm here with my wife, Erin Cook. We live at 362-201 Concession 16. It's a challenging road. It does have some history. It was repaired 2019 because I believe the road sinks. I believe now we have a different problem. The bridge is being blocked by beaver dams, and I have tried maintaining it over the time, but it's become needing bigger equipment than what I can do. So currently the bridge was holding back 12 to maybe 18 inches of water. Niall has informed me upon our arrival here tonight that that has been addressed, and they're going to come back and monitor it tomorrow to make sure that they've got it. So I do believe that clearing the bridge is going to be the fix to our immediate problem. We did, speaking tonight, I suppose my ask is that there is maybe a schedule put in place to monitor the situation. Probably this winter is going to be okay, but just moving forward, it hasn't been an issue in the 7 years I've lived there, but the beavers seem to have made that their newest destination. So I do believe next summer and spring it would continue. So if there was some type of schedule in the roads department, I don't know whose that falls under, to monitor. Our current experience have been we have made requests. There have been some progress, but unless we are acting and monitoring and approaching the council or the roads department, and nothing else seems to happen. So that would be my ask: is that there is a schedule of simply monitoring the condition of the bridge. I think that would address a lot of this. In the near future, probably some preventative work may be required to bring some more fill in. I understand it is a no winter maintenance road, and I am happy to take care of the snow to the bridge to my house. A little bit of help on just general maintenance. There are many other ratepayers that come down and use the road. There is a municipal property down there. I don't feel I should bear the full burden of keeping that road drivable.
It's not a no winter maintenance road. It's on the calendar. We're supposed to get some people on their house. It just never happened.
Okay,
Not asking
on
for-
that, we'll turn to Niall on the no winter road maintenance, or is it on our list?
It's on the map. Like I looked at a map. It is on there. The previous owner used to get road clearing all the way to the house until it flooded and they stopped. And that's when he came to council in 2009, I believe.
I'm curious myself of what the actual status is. I was not aware. I was under the impression that it was not maintained past the bridge. I'm curious on the current.
We don't currently maintain past the bridge. The bridge is a load restricted bridge. So the bridge is a 1910 structure. It's K003. We inspected it this summer. The bridge is our oldest bridge in the township. So it's over 100 years old now, 114 years, soon to be 115 years old. We inspected it in summer. There was beaver activity under it in summer. We removed the beaver dam based on the call we got earlier this week. We have sent crews back out. We've removed this beaver dam, which had reappeared underneath it through the fall. We removed that today. We will be back tomorrow, as noted, to check that none of the debris re-escalates underneath the bridge. We will put it onto a regular schedule, and if we need to undertake beaver trapping, we will undertake beaver trapping to try and get them to move on from that area for a period of time. And as you say, we hope that will address the immediate issue. We do have a private road grant program, and so there is available grant fund to help with purchase of gravel. We don't have any equipment that can get over the other side of that bridge because of the load restriction, but we're more than happy I can share details of the program to offset the costs of gravel and or contractors to spread the gravel. In the meantime, and the flooding was bad this week, so we did have another look to see whether there are balancing culverts that might be added at some point in the future to help alleviate that in the instance that the bridge backs up once again. So we take on board the comments and are looking into it.
Appreciate the information about the grant. I don't believe it to be a privately owned road, so I'm not sure how I would qualify for that. But yes, certainly there would be some private contractors out there with some creative thinking and equipment that would be able to get gravel across the load restriction.
Okay, I believe Councillor Thompson has a question here.
Yeah, I'm hoping to avoid you having to come up here, but this is side road 6 or concession 16, correct, right? So then are you east of like Zion?
I'm east of Zion Church.
Oh.
So if you're looking at this, so Zion, like that's coming from Flavor and Zion's here.
Down this way. Yeah, right at the very end. That's the river that's the bridge across that river that's being blocked.
There's a bridge there, and there's a portion of that road. If I mind right, there's a portion of that road that if you get right down to it, it's almost like a corduroy road. I think
There was
where there's
talk when we were here last time pleading to get the road repaired, that it used to be a corduroy road.
If you get
There's
down
no
that
evidence of that at all. The road essentially ends at my laneway and it becomes a swamp thereafter.
yeah, and
There
this
is a managed forest there owned by the municipality and a nice brand new sign up there. So other people do go down that road and enjoy that municipally owned property. And I think that road should be maintained at least to be safe in the summer months. Again, I understand and I'm happy to remove the snow for my own access in the winter because it is primarily my own access. Summer months, many other people do utilize that road and it can at times become a safety concern.
I know where you are, and I think this has been a problem. This has been a problem for decades. So I remember on 20 years of this, and I remember at the time talking to counselors that said in the past they had previous townships, like a previous iteration of municipal governments, they had even gone to other means to try and sort out the beaver problem. They're more explosive measures, and I think there was a time over almost 20 years ago where we took equipment down there to try and do that and found ourselves in a real jam because we got off the road and created. So this has been a big problem.
I heard all those stories last time we were here, 2019, and there was an agreement with the previous owners. Their house had burnt, and to get their permit to rebuild, they had to bring the road up to a certain condition. I gather there was no long-term that it had to be maintained at that. They had to bring it up to a condition to get their permit, which they did. So now there are several issues. One is beaver dams now at the bridge. Usually it was on concession 17. There's been quite a lot of beaver trapping. Not so much recently, maybe they came my direction, but it floods the no winter maintenance road on 17. And I noted the trapper was in there quite frequently, probably 2 years ago, and that seems to deal with it. But there's several issues. One of them, and it will continue, and in the 7 years we've been there, it's probably about a 3 to 4 year cycle where the road just needs a few dump truck loads of pit run, and it'd be nice to finish it off with some gravel. And again, a schedule of that. It's not, we're not asking for a paved road or anything. I just think some type of a schedule and for it to be monitored would be reasonable, just to keep it at a safe level for us and for anybody that wants to enjoy that managed forest back there.
So just a question, who owns the managed forest? It's not a George of Loves, is it?
Oh, I guess it's a county forest.
Grey County or Grey Sauble?
It would be Grey County.
Through you, Mayor Carlton, I did check into the land ownership. There's 300 acres owned by Escarpment Biosphere Conservancy, 100 acres owned by Grey Sauble Conservation Area, 100 acres owned by the County of Grey.
Okay.
Between the end of concession 16 and the end of the Lindenwood concession 17 on the other side of the swamp.
May I clarify further? Are any of those recreation areas that any of those organizations support with trails or parking or like signage beyond that? Grey Sauble has signs up locating things, but
Their sign does say hiking, skiing, hunting, those things, and those activities do happen. Not that they have maintained trails that they do, but definitely people go back there and hunt that property, hike in there and so on and so forth, but.
And parking is just like this, there's no official parking lot based
No,
on
it's
any
at
of
the
those
end of the way,
organizations.
ultimately.
So, and do I understand that the other issue would be getting gravel trucks across that bridge, that's just not going to be feasible?
They did it 5 years ago.
The private contractor brought half loads across, I think, whether it brought it in total ability, but again, a gravel conveyor, it's not a wide bridge. There are certainly relatively easy means of getting gravel across, whether we take smaller trucks and half loads or whether we convey gravel across to a Bobcat. Certainly anybody that's done any kind of that sort of work would have some creative ideas on how to manage that.
And does the private roads grant that we have, would that be applicable here that could be utilized?
Absolutely. Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is exactly why we set the private road grant up, to help in these exact situations. We have provided support to 2 private roads, which are in fact municipally owned roads in the township for exactly these sorts of things. And you're quite right, contractors can come up with very innovative ways of working with pieces of equipment that we simply don't have access to. And so I will connect back in with Mr. Cook and Mr. Cook.
Private road just scares me as the for fear
It's just what we're
of accepting
calling
any
that
type of
grant.
ownership over that road.
No ownership, no owner, there would be no concern. We've developed the program basically to help people that are using municipally owned property to access their property that need a hand in, and it was a direction of council to address issues exactly like this.
So Niall will reach out to you and we can move forward.
That program and now thank you for your quick reaction to our urgent situation. I think we're in the clear for now, and with a bit of routine inspections, I think we can stay that way, and then we can get some maintenance done next spring, and we'll be in really good shape next year.
Good. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, moving on, the next item is the consent agenda. Are there any items on there that anyone on council wishes to pull? Seeing none, the recommendation is that Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs adopt the consent agenda for information as circulated, and that all actions contained therein are hereby approved. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Day. Is there any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Next item. We have no correspondence this evening. Committee reports. On Committee of the Whole, does any member wish to pull an item from Committee of the Whole? We need to pull here the Committee of Adjustment council member appointments, item 12.1.6. Okay. So then, sorry, I have to get back to. The recommendation is that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on December 4th, 2024 be adopted, including recommendation COW 2024-119, the COW 2024-123. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Scholdice, Councillor Day, is there any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. And COW 2024-124 has been pulled because I, as mayor, had my name put on there since Councillor Thompson was away, but Councillor Thompson has indicated he would like to stay on Committee of Adjustment. So if we can make that amendment to that motion this evening. Carly, go ahead.
If we could put the original recommendation on the floor, and then we can do an amendment.
Okay. So the original recommendation is that report COR 2024-051 be received, and that staff be directed to present a bylaw for enactment at the December 11th, 2024 meeting of council to appoint Mayor Sue Carlton and Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn to the Committee of Adjustment, expiring December 11th, 2025. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Thompson, Deputy Mayor Pringle. And then we need to put forth an amendment, which I don't think I'm supposed to do as mayor.
Is it appropriate for me to do it if I'm recommending this? That's fine. I'm happy to
So you will
propose
move
an
the
amendment
amendment.
that I'll maintain my spot on the Committee of Adjustment Committee.
Okay, and could I have a seconder for that? Councillor Day? Is there any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Day.
Very quick question to also confirm that Councillor Thompson is happy to stay on the library.
Oh, yeah, that was.
That was a four-year appointment to start with.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
My
so you
apologies.
knew that when going into that it was a four-year appointment. Okay, so I will call, oh, sorry, Carly?
Mayor Carlton, I just wanted to add one minor tweak to that amendment as well, to direct staff to make the necessary amendments to bylaw 2024-068 as presented on tonight's agenda.
So everybody's okay with that further adjustment to the amendment? Okay, I will call the vote then. All in favor? That is carried, and then we go back to the main motion. And I will call the vote on that one. All in favor? That is carried. Okay. Thank you. Staff reports. 2024 year-end report. The recommendation is that the 2024 year-end report be received for information. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Scholdes, Councillor Day. Brittany.
Hi. I was kind of excited to have an audience tonight.
And they all left.
So I will be very brief. I just threw some very quick notes together about the report that you have in front of you this evening, and noting that it is quite fulsome in it addresses a lot of accomplishments that this council has made over the course of this past year. And personally reflecting, I have been a team member of this team for coming up on 8 years now. And I can personally, I know, and I can personally say that this past year has been one of the most productive years that I've seen our team have. And I do think that that is a credit to you all, our council, and a credit to the staff team that you've built. So without further ado, can I have our next slide, please? In addressing 2024 and reviewing our accomplishments, I would be remiss if I didn't start by saying 2024 saw a new strategic plan put in front of council. Not only that, but we spent the bulk of the year creating it, canvassing council, canvassing the community to understand what our priorities were and what we need to prioritize over the course of the next 5 years. And in doing so, we created the view from the top, our Vision 2050. And that was presented to council this past November and has now been released to the community for comment prior to council ratifying it in the new year. You'll note that this report takes the form of the strategic plan, in that all of our projects have been tied to a specific pillar over their previously identified departments. And we do intend to tie all of our future projects to the pillars identified in your plan to ensure that we're continuing to meet the metrics that council has prioritized. Next slide, please. And in speaking of our pillars, these are them. And you'll note that they are sprinkled all throughout the plan as we discuss the projects. So service, infrastructure, people, and opportunity, kind of separating out the different and unique talents of your respective departments. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as we move through our pillars and we move through the report and the strategic plan, I've broken the projects down into their respective pillars and tied them back to goals that council has established through the strategic plan. And I will keep referring to the plan in noting that it has not actually been adopted by bylaw yet, but has received support from the committee structure. So note that I do recognize it is not a finalized document as of yet. When we think of success and we think of our successes in our customer service dedicated pillars, I wanted to highlight a few projects, and I will highlight 3 projects associated with each pillar, and noting that there's ample more in the report, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. From our customer service dedicated pillar, I will note that our new and improved, capital I improved, website has gone live for a soft launch, as we're calling it, effective this past Monday. So the new and improved version of the website is live, and we're welcoming any feedback from council, the public, staff, whomever. Haley may kill me for saying this, but we welcome you to attempt to break it. You shouldn't be able to break it, and you should be able to find what you need with greater ease than the previous version. So we're very happy to have that live and up and running. That will come with a new feature that we've talked about a couple times around this horseshoe. That is the citizen portal that will welcome members of the public to log into an account online and access township services right at their fingertips, including payment and viewing of their property tax details. That has not been rolled out, but will be rolled out in January. And a really big program that you'll hear me continue to talk about over the course of the next probably cover years, 10 years, is our records management program, and moving our township more into a modernized approach when we consider our records and how we retain them and how we give the public, council, and staff easier access to our township records. Next slide, please. And when we look at our community-based pillar, being empowering communities, a few things I wanted to highlight. The community events portfolio, and in reflecting on my time spent in Georgian Bluffs, this is one of the greatest improvements I've seen this council and our staff team tackle over the course of this past year and that of the previous year, being 2023, is getting out and about in our community and welcoming our community members in and welcoming them into fun events, i.e. Sparkle and Skate. I live and breathe for the holiday season, and I think that event is a true marker of what we're trying to accomplish when we consider this pillar. So we hosted 14 community events this year, and they were very well attended. And that is a pattern that we hope to duplicate over the course of 2025 and introduce even more community events. We've completed the upgrades at the Sarawak Family Park, including installation of a Mobi map, and we also held a grand opening there in September that recognized the contributions of the Scenic City Order of Good Cheer with the accessible washroom upgrades. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't make mention of the short-term accommodations licensing program that has been a benchmark within the 2024 year. As of today, we have received 3 applications. They have been received through a beta test program that welcomed operators to assist us in kind of testing out bugs or working out any kinks within the licensing portal that we have developed to facilitate this program. So we have successfully received 3 applications to date and anticipate to receive more prior to the March 1st deadline. Next slide, please. And when we consider our environment and our infrastructure, this will be a large conversation for council in your upcoming years as we move towards asset management planning and your receipt of your asset management plan in early of 2025. A lot of our work in 2024 informed the recommendations you'll see form part of the asset management plan, including completion of the biennial OSIM that evaluated the health of 37 bridges and culverts throughout the township over the course of 2024. And a fun, again, exciting project would be the sidewalk replacements that saw 500 meters of sidewalks replaced on 1st, 2nd, and Noble Street in Shallow Lake. The next slide, please, Julie. This one I'm really excited to talk about. I'm very, very excited, not only about the health and safety review that's noted that we have initiated to begin to modernize some of our programs and procedures that we observe within this building and to prioritize the safety of our staff team. However, this township has seen the lowest staff turnover rate since 2020. It fell a remarkable 26% in 1 year. And I think when we think about our achievements over the past year, this is a remarkable number and something to be extremely proud of, and definitely a feather in the cap of both council and your CAO. And next slide, please. That's it. A very brief summary. I'm happy to take any questions, comments, or thoughts.
Thank you. And Councillor Schultes.
I'm very excited for that. I explored the website. I like it. I think it's good. Yep. I like it. Yep. It's user-friendly, and I like how when you click on parts, there's images for each one, waterfalls, images for each one. I thought that was a nice addition. I like it. Yep.
I will pass that along to
Yep.
communications team. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. Excellent report. Okay,
I'm a little slow to draw.
that's okay. Go ahead,
I
Councillor.
just- I feel like the CAO and council that have had an impact, but that it's not just the senior parts of a municipality that make a change like that. So congrats to you and the rest of the staff as well for all your work.
Yes, thank you for expressing that, because you're quite right. That's everybody working together, so thank you to everyone. Okay, if there's no further discussion on that item, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Development and infrastructure. The recommendation that staff report DEV 2024-069 Z05/24 Wepler zoning bylaw be received for information, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the zoning bylaw amendment related to this proposal as substantially contained in this report. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? I'll go Councillor Coburn and Deputy Mayor Pringle. And is anyone speaking to this, or Michael, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton. I will be brief as soon as I get my right. There we go. Sorry about that. As Council may recall, we did have a public meeting associated with the Wepler zoning amendment back in September 18th, 2024. This report is being brought back to Council for your consideration as a follow-up to that public meeting. By way of a bit of background on this, the Wepler lands are located just north of the hamlet of Katy on River number 3, and right now there's a 1 acre parcel that contains an office and a fabrication shop that was zoned for that use back a number of years ago, actually almost 20 years ago now, back in 2003. So the Mr. and Mrs. Wepler, along the shop right now, are looking to retire, and they're looking at some ways of making more sustainable income in their retirement, and they'd like to convert a portion of that existing building to accommodate 3 apartments with associated parking and storage space. Because this is outside of the settlement area, there are no services, municipal services provided to the site now. It has a private well and septic system. We've had some discussions with through the public meeting and afterwards with Grey County planning staff, and they've noted that where the site is, it does not contain any natural heritage features, so there's no need for environmental impact assessments. They also know that the stormwater management infrastructure was not needed for this proposal given its location. And they also, in discussion with the proponent regarding servicing, the proponent does recognize that he does need to upgrade the septic system as part of this development. Because it's where it is and because of the nature of the development proposed, if the zoning amendment were to go through to recognize the change of use from industrial use to an agricultural use, the only other step beyond that would be for a building permit process, because the province has changed the Planning Act and site plan approval is no longer required for multi-unit residential units that are under 10 units in size. So this one falls under that. It's a multi-unit with 3 units in the apartments, but it's under 10 units. So our only 2 recourses are zoning amendment and then building permit process. The requirements under the building permit process do also include the need for a septic system, and there's a permit process associated with that, and as well as the building redesign itself. And the septic design would comply with administrative environment, Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, MOE D54 guidelines. So staff are recommending approval of the zoning amendment to amend the existing site-specific industrial zone to a site-specific agricultural use to recognize the 3 additional apartments and feel as consistent with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, Grey County official plan, and general.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone on council? Seeing none, I will call the vote. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Coburn.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Carlton, to the planner. Is this, so we received some comments from one of our council members with some concerns. I believe this is one of the 2 that was referenced. Is that correct, Michael? And if so, the concerns raised by this council member have to do with potential contamination of groundwater in regards to septic installation. Now, I think I'm understanding the comments to imply that we're perhaps not treating applications consistently in this regard. But I also do note, Mr. Benner, that you referenced changes in regulations at the provincial level. So if that's more recent than the ones that have been approved in 2023, I'm just wondering if that accounts for the differences in how we handle this. Do you feel, so there's that, and do you feel that there's been adequate assessment for the potential for groundwater contamination with this application as well as the one to follow it? I wonder if you could make comment on that specifically. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Carlton, to Councillor Coburn. If I could, I'd like to speak to the 2 applications separately with respect to the matters raised by Councillor Winters, because they have different responses. For this application, for the Wepler application, when you look at provincial policy and then you look at our own policies at the county level and municipal level with respect to redevelopment of lands for this one in particular, when you're in the countryside and you're looking at this as opposed to a settlement area, the policies regarding redevelopment are different. In this instance, where we have an existing commercial use and they're introducing a residential use, there are triggers, not so much in the zoning side of it, but certainly in the Building Code Act that require compliance with Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks guidelines in terms of the construction, design, and installation of a septic system, as well as a change of use from an industrial use to a more sensitive residential use. So the comments made by Councillor Winters are well taken and valid. However, in this instance, those can be addressed under the building permit process. So, and the reason I'm couching my comments a little bit differently for this one is because it is outside of the settlement area, and because of that, the impacts are generally considered to be a little bit less because of the lower densities in this area. So impacts to groundwater are certainly dealt with through a sewage feasibility study, and in this instance, I think it's appropriate to look at that under the building code process.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Coburn?
So you're saying under the building permit process, we can be assured that there will be no potential for groundwater contamination. Is that it in a nutshell?
To Carlton, yes, that's correct. In this instance.
So thank you, Michael. I think I understand that. Can you explain why in the past we've asked for hydrogeological assessments where we wouldn't have made that kind of request for an application such as this one?
Again, through you, Mayor Carlton, to Councillor Colburn. In the difference as to why we've asked for those in the past and for this one in particular is not so much that we haven't asked for hydro-G studies in the past. We have, but those requests are more centered to our settlement areas, and the reason being is there is policy language in both the county official plan and our own official plan that speak to servicing options in settlement areas. And the next application that's coming forward, for instance, is a matter that needs to be addressed in that application. So it's not so much that we aren't being consistent. It's more, I think, more of a question of location as opposed to policies. If we are, we do have several redevelopments and new developments that occur all the time in our countryside areas, in our agricultural and rural designated areas. And in those areas, because of the nature of those developments, especially on the residential side of things, we simply apply building code requirements for installation of septic systems and home construction, that sort of thing. When we get into the settlement areas, certainly there's a higher concentration of existing homes, higher concentration of, especially in Georgian Bluffs, where we have on-site sewage systems. And because of that, there are policies in the Greer County official plan and their own official plan that speak to taking a closer, more defined look at how servicing is applied to new developments. And our own official plan policies in particular do speak to the idea of servicing feasibility studies. And I think that's where Councillor Winters is again, he's on target. He has a valid concern, and it is reflected in our policies. So I think, and I recognize planning policy is very, very complicated, and sometimes it's difficult for me to understand. The planner getting as gray-haired and long in the tooth as I am because there's so many changes occurring. But I can say, for instance, with some certainty that the way we are applying policies in the countryside and the rural agricultural areas has been very consistent over the years. In the coming application, that perhaps we should speak to that when we get to that. I can speak more to how that's been applied in that instance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on this one? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next item is the recommendation is that staff report DEV 2024-070 Z06/24 Hutchinson zoning bylaw be received for information, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the zoning bylaw amendment related to this proposal as substantially contained in this report. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Scholdice, and Michael, I will turn back to you on this one.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton. So this report is a follow-up meeting to report, sorry, to the public meeting that we had on this application, and In summary, this application is requesting amendment to our zoning bylaw to permit a 5-unit townhouse development within the village of Shallow Lake on Joint Street. There's the site itself is fairly large, and the development itself will be as I noted, a townhouse development that will comprise of a 5-unit row-style townhouse with 5 2-bedroom units, and the purpose of those units is to be actually purpose-built for long-term rentals. They aren't selling the individual units. They're all going to be controlled over the one. Red Angel Incorporated is the landowner, and they all control that rental. They also have no intention to open up those rentals for short-term accommodations. They will be geared rentals geared more towards our new home buyers or not home buyers, but home renters, and as well as our aging population. A number of, in looking at this development, we look at several things several matters that need to be taken into consideration. Site servicing, site access, and traffic, as well as environmental and ecological matters. Kind of moving backwards from that, the site itself it's a fairly flat site near the road, but then it becomes rolling and terraced in the rear. And there is some karst topography in the rear of the site, so a karst assessment is ongoing for this project. It's nearing completion. The site being within Shallow Lake itself has not been identified by the county as having, or I should say the Conservation Authority for that matter as well, as having any ecological features other than the karst assessment itself. I've been on the site, and there are some beautiful terraced areas and lots of ground cover, but you can definitely tell there's some karst in the rear of it. So that's what's creating the karst assessment. In terms of site access and traffic, the entrance is located there's an existing entrance of sorts located on the outside curve of Joint Street, and it provides good sight lines for traffic in both directions. I've had discussions with our operations staff, and they felt that because there will be an internal parking area with only one entrance, egress to the site, and anticipated traffic flows of only about 10 traffic movements per day, did not warrant a further traffic impact study. It was just too low to require that sort of a study. Now, in terms of servicing for sewer and water, the site is located in our service. We have water services in Shallow Lake. The site actually does have a 200 millimeter water main exists along Joint Street, and there is an existing service lead, a lateral that is coming off of that main onto the site. That will be, perhaps that lateral may need to be increased in size, and the operations staff weren't sure exactly what size that lateral was, because there used to be a house on the site, and that's why all that was serviced. The proponents, the applicants, did communicate with Waterloo Biofilter, and that's the treatment system that they're proposing to put on the site. It would be so all the units will flow into one septic system, because they're all owned by one individual. So that system is rated at 6,750 liters per day, and it'll use a 1,700 square meter contact area that would be located. Actually, if you were to think of the site, it's a little bit hard to kind of picture how that would look, but it would be located near the road, and the south portion of the site is fairly flat. So getting to Councillor Coburn's comments earlier and also Councillor Winter's concerns, that the information submitted from Waterloo Biofilter did provide the sizing for that, but it did not provide enough information to in fact, it was silent on the idea of will that system have an impact on the groundwater in the area. So perhaps that is something that should be accomplished. And there's different ways of doing that. One would be to simply defer the matter until that study is complete. Or, and this would be staff's recommendation, is to amend the proposed zoning bylaw to include a holding provision on the zoning bylaw that would require that study be completed and any recommendations coming out of that study to be implemented. It would be very similar to what we've done for the implementation of the environmental impact studies on other properties. And where you'll have the holding provision will be lifted upon the recommendations coming of the study being implemented. So certainly Councillor Winters has made a valid point, and it was reiterated by Councillor Coburn that especially in our settlement areas, servicing feasibility studies are common. We've requested, well, actually the other development in Shadow Lake that was approved last year, or earlier this year, I should say, it was applied for last year and then finally approved earlier this year, did include a servicing feasibility study that they put in even prior to the application. It was just done voluntarily. So to be consistent, I think is probably a good approach to also require that to be done for this. In summary, I'd say a holding provision would be the way to go.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
If I might ask a clarifying question before these ideas dissipate too much. When you mentioned the study for which the holding provision would be put in place for, is that the karst study that would examine groundwater further, or is it a study about the septic, or both?
It would be a different one. The karst study is looking at the amount of fractured bedrock on site and whether or not fractured bedrock karst is located in the building envelope area. If it is, then there's different engineering requirements for the design of the building that would have to be taken into consideration. The feasibility study, servicing feasibility study that would look at the potential impacts of the septic system on groundwater resources in the area is a different science. It's certainly looking at the geology underlying the site, but it's certainly a different impact, and therefore it's a different methodology behind that study.
Go ahead.
Is there a reason we would go ahead without a holding provision on the karst study? Would it make sense if for any incomplete study to have a holding provision in place?
Sorry, through you, Carlton, to Councillor Day. Generally speaking, if it was not a karst study, it was an environmental impact study or something like that, that's where you would really look at having a holding provision to implement the mitigation measures coming out of the environmental impact study. Karst assessments are generally different because then they become an engineering assessment that is then implemented through the Building Code Act. So that karst assessment, the zoning that we have would include that karst assessment, and that would run with properties so that when the applicants submit their building permit applications, they would submit that karst assessment with it. If the assessment does say that you need to provide some additional structural support in the foundation and that sort of thing to bridge the karst features.
think I've misunderstood for a long time the purpose of the karst study. I assumed it had to do with the flow of water through the bedrock, but I'm starting to understand that it's more about structural stability for the buildings on top of the fractured bedrock. So thank you for that clarification. I do have a different question on a totally different topic, so I'm happy to wait until other folks have had a chance
Go ahead.
to talk.
And Councillor Coburn, we're coming to you.
When this one first came up, there were some comments from the public about this particular development. And I'm curious if the people who originally commented about the proposed building received notification of this meeting about the update and the traffic study, because I think they would be interested in the traffic study. Because we have this, we've talked about the cart and the horse and the order in which things happen. So just making sure that the people who are interested are fully informed that these conversations are taking place.
And to Mayor Carlton, to Councilor Day, the individuals who did provide information at the public meeting were not notified that this report was coming to this council meeting, but they had, they had been aware of the application. I did speak to them regarding their concerns were traffic and just the change in the nature of the residential character of the area. And I've had discussions with both parties regarding that. They were also had some concerns with the environment, and I've discussed that with them as well. It's generally speaking, when after you hold a public meeting, and in the nature of this information report, they wouldn't really have the opportunity to speak, although they could have, I suppose, earlier in our agenda could have provided some information on that. But they haven't really reached out to me beyond when I was speaking with them earlier about it.
That is Councillor Day. Okay. Councillor Coburn, we'll go to you next.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton, through you to, I guess, the rest of council. I'm not inclined to support this. It's interesting. We had, oh boy, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, everything went black there for a minute. We had a very similar discussion about this very thing at Committee of Adjustment yesterday. And that is the number of times we're asked to approve an application with several things outstanding, in particular, some technical studies that would help inform our decision. So I would like to see the karst study and the servicing feasibility study completed before we approve this. I would recommend we defer it until those are done rather than affixing an H symbol to this one. I'm increasingly becoming uncomfortable approving these kinds of application based on what needs to be done yet, what's still outstanding, and what information might come back in the future. I think because, as Mr. Benner states, this one is in a settlement area, there may be concerns about that come from the feasibility study, and I want to be aware of those before I approve, regardless of whether it has a holding status or not. So I'm inclined to want to defer this one.
Niall, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Carlton, I'm going to offer a very, very brief comment, and I think a deferral is an entirely appropriate decision to make this evening. I think one of the things that as a municipality we have to constantly be aware of is provincial pressure. And so the province has made it very clear that municipalities are not to be a roadblock to development. And one of the ways in which we're not to be a roadblock to development is to not front end the requirement for a developer to meet significant expense in studies and pro formas before they get to an approval stage. The theory being they don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars to develop a lot, only to find that they then don't find that they have approval. And so One of the reasons why the holding provision is used is to try and meet the provincial timelines, which are fairly restrictive in terms of this. As I say, on one-off instances like this, a deferral is something which is entirely appropriate, but certainly one of the reasons why we do use the holding provision is to try and meet the provincial direction to approve development quickly and to not cause developers to meet what can be fairly significant costs in site studies and so on and so forth without an assurance that they will eventually be able to develop that project. And so I know that's certainly one of the things that Mr. Benner has in the back of his mind, and I know there were some conversations at Committee of Adjustment last night, which I look forward to the outcome of over the coming months. But a decision such as a deferral would be something which is entirely acceptable on this one.
Thank you. And I guess if I had a question on this one, if we did approve this though, and the holding symbols are on there, does it come back to us to let us know that those have been released?
To Eric Felton, we would have to come back then to remove the hold through another amendment to the bylaw.
So council would be made aware of that as it moves forward.
Yes.
So whether we defer or not is still going to be coming back to us at some point. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So I will just turn to the rest of council for your wishes. Sorry.
So through you, Mayor Carlton, you would still in that instance, if you wanted to approve with a holding provision, which would be the trigger for it to come back, that would be one amendment, I believe, to what's on the floor. The alternative could be, as Councillor Coburn has indicated, to defer this subject to it coming back with that report in place.
Councillor Day.
I'm afraid I'm not 100% clear on what happens if, say, the servicing study is completed and it's found not to be a suitable site for some reason. Not that I'm talking specifically about this particular development, but if the holding provisions are in place but can't be met, that means the developer is still in the same situation where they invested into the property and are unable to move forward.
Go ahead.
Mayor Carlton, yes, that is a possibility with any development. It could be that servicing study comes, the feasibility study comes back. It does have a significant impact, and they cannot mitigate that impact. If they cannot mitigate the impact, then the development cannot move forward. So that's very clear in the MOECP guidelines for impacts beyond water. So certainly a deferral to see what the study results are is appropriate.
Councillor Thompson?
I am inclined to support Councillor Coburn's position. I'm just curious, if we approve it with a holding, sorry, I'll go the other way. If we defer it until after the studies, as opposed to approving it with a holding, hearing that it has to come back, have we disadvantaged the developer in any way, really? I guess what I'm curious to hear is saying, well, we're doing this so that we don't put red tape in front of a developer who might expend money to find out they can't develop. But that doesn't really hold water for me, because I think, well, they're expending money on the service. That's the purpose for holding it, yeah.
So through you, Mayor Carlton, the short answer is not much, but a little bit. And the little bit is, if it's a holding provision, what council is essentially saying is, we're good with the development, you just need to check this box, but you've approved the development. If you defer it, they can go away and do the studies and you can still turn it down. Whether or not the study meets the needs or not, you still have the ability to turn that application down at that point. So the approval with a holding provision basically says, we're good, just go and do this last thing and we'll sign on the dotted line. A deferral pending the study means go out and do the study and we still may deny it at the end of the day. That's the subtle difference. Yeah.
So I guess my question is, I don't think we've disadvantaged a developer much. We're saying whether it's do this study and then we'll make a decision, or do this study, and then we'll make a decision, basically. We've approved it, provided the study is positive, as opposed to do this study, and then we'll make a decision. It doesn't really feel like it feels very much like a distinction without much of a difference.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Hilton. And if I may add to that a little bit, just so we're crystal clear on the difference between a deferral and approval with a holding provision. When you approve something with a holding provision, the bylaw basically sets out clear instructions through the hold provision what must be accomplished prior to that development being able to be built. I'll use an example where the easiest one is an environmental impact study. That the development's approved based on the recommendations coming out of the environmental impact study. And those recommendations are that, and this is where it would go into the hold, that you're only allowed to build in a building envelope, and you can't cut any trees down between April and November. And yeah, something like that. So it gives a clear direction as to do these steps, and then you can build. And because it's a zoning amendment, it runs with that property. So even if it's 15 years later, they still have to follow clear off those conditions on the hold before they can actually build.
Okay.
So the more we talk about this, the more I think a deferral makes more sense than a hold, because a hold would say, once you go and do this thing, you can go ahead. But in this case, it is not really that. It is go ahead and do this thing, and if the results are positive, then you have our approval. Like it's not really like saying if you meet the standard, then everything is okay. We're really saying, pending the results of this assessment, you may or may not be able to go ahead.
So through you, Mayor Carlton, and I know we're splitting hairs a little bit here, but I think it's actually the other way round. So the holding provision says, go ahead, we're good with the development in principle, but we're worried about this issue. Go ahead, and as long as you do all the background work that says this issue is okay, you can then develop the site. Whereas a deferral basically says, we're worried about this issue, and we might be worried about a whole bunch of other stuff as well, but we don't know yet. We're not confident about this development. Go away and do this study and bring it back. And then we may have a concern about something else, regardless of the findings of this particular study. So one gives the developer certainty, they do this, they can develop. The other one gives slightly less certainty. But we are very much in the splitting hairs sphere. Okay.
Okay, I'll go to Deputy Mayor Pringle. He's had his hand up for a bit. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Carlton. I guess I kind of lean towards the deferral too. And correct me, Niall, if I'm wrong here, but if we leave that whole provision on here and that company goes through and does it all, and then all of a sudden decide, no, we're not interested. So we're going to go 6 months down the road, and another guy's going to come along and say, I want to build a sixplex on that lot. And then we go through the holding provision, and he goes, I'm not interested. If we go with a deferral stating that this has to be done before you can be approved, does that eliminate coming back to this every 6 months? I guess might be my question, I guess. So I'm just trying to, hopefully we're going to alleviate whichever way we can not go back, like, here we are back again at the same property. And it hasn't, I don't know, it's been 6 months since we're here last. And I'm just wondering, how can we get to an end goal that if we have a deferral stating that this needs to be done before you can even proceed, and they're agreeable to that, then they can move forward and see where it ends up. Am I correct in that, or am I out to lunch?
Michael, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton, through you to Deputy Mayor Pringle. One never knows what's going to come down, in the future. If this application was deferred, the applicants may decide to appeal that deferral decision and take the matter to the Ontario Lands Tribunal. Because it's a zoning amendment, only they or a prescribed body, which are what they call prescribed persons in the act, basically means agencies, can appeal the decision, not the neighbors can't. So there's an avenue. If it's deferred, they may decide to maybe cut their losses and move on. I don't know. It all depends on how much they've invested in it now and how convinced they are to move forward with it. Even if it had a holding provision on it versus a deferral, and if they decide to not proceed, the only difference is that with the hold provision, the principles of approval of that type of development are there. Council has basically said, yes, building a 5-unit townhouse is good. We just need to figure out this last bit. The deferral, as our CIO has mentioned, is basically saying that council's not comfortable in making a decision on this development.
So before I go to Councillor Coburn, I just want to ask a question. If we defer this and they go out and do this study and find out that the system wouldn't support 5 houses or units on that property, but would support 4, they could come back and change the application at that point.
Yes.
If we've given basic approval with a holding, the original application is for 5, would it simply get amended or? Okay.
To you, Mayor Cullen, we would have to amend if in that scenario, we would have to amend the bylaw to recognize the results of that.
Right. So in that case, a deferral for them to get the information to find out what that system would support first might be easier on this end. Councillor Coburn.
Thank you. So for me, if this was the exact same scenario where we had full servicing, I probably wouldn't be batting an eye, but we don't. And so the issue of septic is concerning to me. And, I think I could be wrong, but I think when the province is pushing for more houses, more affordable houses to be built quickly, I think what they're saying is build those in places where you have full servicing so that water and septic are not an issue. But it is here. And so I'm personally not comfortable with an H provision. I want to see the results of that servicing feasibility study before I put my stamp of approval on any multiplex unit being built there.
Okay, so we have a recommendation on the floor. Does someone want to put forward an amendment to that? Or Carly, go ahead.
For you, Mayor Carlton, a motion to defer would be sufficient at this point in time.
Okay.
I would also suggest that it specify that it be deferred until such time as the applicants have completed the servicing feasibility study.
Only the servicing feasibility study, or do we need to work the CARS study into that as well?
Mayor Carlton, you could really, because that study's underway. I don't think it's really changing things. It is a deferral, and ultimately, if council's uncomfortable with the application because council doesn't have the information it needs to make an informed decision, then deferral, just deferral. I don't know if you really need to make a ruling as to
why we're deferring.
Well, I think why deferring is important, but I don't think you need to make it a conditional deferral.
No.
I'm going to note, through you, Mayor Carlton, I will note one one tiny little element, and we have no idea. There's been no discussion of this. We are right up against the planning deadline for this. And so the applicant has every opportunity to appeal your decisions to the Ontario Land Tribunal, deferral, holding provision, or a non-decision. A non-decision the minute we talk about deferral, possibly a holding provision, I don't think there's an amendment on the floor just yet, but assuming that we're in that direction, you do make a decision, which does mean that they can't go to the OLT for a non-decision because you have rendered a decision, but they can appeal any decision that you make at this point to the Ontario Land Tribunal, at which point we would then be into making, in essence, the OLT would be making the decision on our behalf.
So if we approve what's on the floor with the holding, they can't appeal that? They can appeal that as well. Okay, sorry, just wanted to check. Councillor Coburn.
Thank you. So what puts us in the best position in the event that there's an appeal? I would think that specific wording would be important, but I'm not a lawyer. So I would turn to Mr. Benner for comment on this. I would think that if we are deferring, we would want to specifically say that we would like to see the results of the servicing feasibility study and the CAR study first. Does that make sense in terms of putting us in more solid footing regarding an appeal?
See, Mayor Carlton, yes.
Okay. And does someone want to move that motion? Councillor Coburn, do I have a seconder? Councillor Thompson? Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That is carried. Okay, next item is 13.2.3, and the recommendation is that correspondence from Design Plan Services dated November 27th, 2024, regarding the request for an extension of draft approval for plan of subdivision 42T-2004-02 for Georgian Villas Inc., Cobble Beach be received, and that council support the request for a 3-year extension of draft approval for plan of subdivision 42T-2004-02 for Georgian Villas Inc. to February 16th, 2028, and that staff be directed to forward the motion in support of the request to the County of Grey. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Scholdice, Councillor Thompson. Are there any comments on this one? Michael?
I will be extremely brief on this one. Draft plan of subdivision 42T 2004-02 is essentially the second phase of the Cobble Beach development. It includes the development of the Algonquin Heights area, which is the majority of Snowberry Lane, Algonquin Trail, and Lawrence Lane, kind of located in the up near the Gray Road 1 portion of Cobble Beach. It also includes, and I should say that those streets, that portion is nearing completion. It also includes lands that would be located on the south side of Cobble Beach Drive that are in that original draft plan subdivision, but have not had any development associated with them. This plan, 2004-02, has already been extended a number of times, and this latest extension does make sense because they are still working on the Lawrence Lane and Snowberry Lane areas, and they have not yet finalized plans for the south side. So that the extension request would bring the extension to February 16th, 2020.
Thank you. Are there any questions from anyone on council about this one? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to bylaws. The first item is, whereas council is, so this is on Hutchison. Am I changing this bylaw now? Hutchison is the one in the village that we just deferred. So I need a motion to defer on this one then? rather than reading the whole thing out. Thank you. Could I have a motion to defer this one, please? Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Coburn, any further discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Next item is back to Wepler. Recommendation is whereas council has given consideration to the written comments submitted by the agencies in the decision on proposed zoning bylaw amendment application Z 05-24 for Robin Aaron Wepler for property located at 117064 Concession 9 Derby, and whereas council has considered oral submissions made at the public meeting, therefore be it resolved that council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs is satisfied that the proposed amendment is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020 and other governing regulations, and that bylaw 2024-064 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Schultes, Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Next item, updated reserve and reserve fund policy. The bylaw or recommendation is that bylaw 2024-065 being a bylaw to adopt a reserve and reserve fund policy for the Township of Georgian Bluffs and repeal bylaw 2019-090 be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Day, Councillor Coburn, is there any discussion? None, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Next item is the updated emergency plan. The recommendation is that bylaw 2024-066 being a bylaw to adopt the 2024 emergency management plan and program be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Day. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Next item being council committee and board appointments. The recommendation is that bylaw 2024-067 being a bylaw to appoint members of council to various committees and local boards be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Thompson, Deputy Mayor Pringle. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. The next item is about Committee of Adjustment. Am I changing how I'm reading that one?
Through you, Mayor Carlton, just to reflect on the screen that the amendment has been made to the number bullet item 1 on the draft bylaw that you have on your agenda.
Okay, so I'm still reading this recommendation exactly as it is, and it's just changed there. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so recommendation that bylaw 2024-068, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Georgian Bluffs, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Schultes. Is there any discussion? We'll call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. We have no unfinished business, no new business. Does any member wish to provide a notice of motion? Councillor Schultes.
This may actually end up going under new business. I don't know how that process works, but I want to inquire about a response from Waste Management. Council directed for a letter to go out for expressing our dissatisfaction with Waste Management for their services with garbage collection. I'm wondering if we had a response from them. If so, what was the response we got? Any direction we needed to take? Any steps to be considered?
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Carlton, yes, we have corresponded numerous times with Waste Management, up until including just 10 minutes before we walked into this room this afternoon. They acknowledged the letter, they acknowledged the concerns of council, and we continue to move forward with trying to rectify challenges that we experience with waste management services.
Thank you. Okay, so next item is closed session. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs hereby moves into closed session at 7:09 PM in the council chambers with the Chief Administrative Officer and Manager of Legislative Services / clerk remaining in the room to discuss 18.1 personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, open meeting exemption B of section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, CAO performance check-in. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Schuldeis, Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. We are now in closed session. Okay, we are back in open session at 7:53. And I will confirm that council moved into closed session under open meeting exemption B of section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. As a result of closed session discussion, council received an update from the CAO on the progress of identified goals and objectives as of Q4. And I will move on to the confirming bylaw. The recommendation is that bylaw number 2024-069, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on December 11th, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Day, Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. And next regular meeting of council is Wednesday, January 15th, 2025 at 5 p.m. There's no further business. I will now call for adjournment of this meeting. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Day, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, yes.